Today, we're going to dive into a concept that's right at the heart of the Islamic faith, Qiyamah, the Day of Judgment. It's a belief that doesn't just define the end of time, but it really gets to the core of why we're even here in the first place. So, let's get into it. Right off the bat, we start with this incredibly direct question from the Quran. It's not addressed to some abstract group, it's a personal question from the Creator to humanity. It really makes you stop and think, what has distracted us? What has made us careless about our own creation, our own purpose? This single question really sets the stage for everything we're about to explore. So that question about where we come from, it naturally just leads to an even bigger one. Why are we here at all? What is our purpose? And this is where Islamic theology gives a really clear and profound answer.
Here's the core idea. Our existence isn't some random accident. It's purposeful. And if you start from that premise, then a final day of judgment isn't some arbitrary event tacked on at the end. No, it's the logical, totally inevitable conclusion to a life that was designed with meaning from the very beginning. It's the ultimate moment of accountability.
Okay, so if life has a purpose, then what is it? What is this divine mandate that we're all apparently going to be judged on? Let's take a look at the criteria. But before we can really get into that, there's a key term we've got to understand: akhirah. This is the Arabic word for the hereafter. And it's not just about a single day. It refers to the entire next phase of existence, the life after death, with the Day of Judgment being its central, pivotal event. And here it is, laid out for us. This is the criteria for that final judgment. And what's really striking is just how holistic it is. It's not just about personal worship, not by a long shot. It includes living righteously, making a positive contribution to society, and even acting as a steward for the earth itself. A person's entire life, their entire impact, is what's being measured. Okay, so for any of this judgment stuff to happen, people have to be, brought back to life first. And look, the whole idea of resurrection can be a tough one for people to wrap their heads around, but Islamic scripture tackles this skepticism head-on with a really specific line of reasoning. And this quote, wow, it presents such a fascinating theological argument. The logic is actually really simple, but it's deep. If God had the power to create us from nothing the very first time, why on earth would it be any harder to do it a second time? It completely reframes the debate, suggesting that doubting resurrection is really like doubting God's original power of creation itself. So the logic is pretty solid, but is it presented as, a sure thing, an absolute guarantee? And the answer from the Quran couldn't be more clear. It is an absolute, emphatic yes. This isn't just stated as a fact. It's delivered as a divine oath. The verse leaves absolutely zero room for doubt. It insists that not only will you be raised again, but for God, it's an easy thing to do. All right, so once everyone is resurrected, what happens next? What does this meticulous reckoning, the process of judgment itself, actually look like? Well, this day is described as the moment the veil is just completely lifted. It's a moment of absolute, undeniable clarity, where every single soul will witness the true, unfiltered consequences of every choice they ever made, every good deed, and every single moment of heedlessness. And this isn't some chaotic free-for-all. No, it's depicted as this incredibly structured and meticulous procedure. First up, a meticulous accounting. Every single action, intention, even things you didn't do are reviewed. Then the evidence is presented. Records are brought out, witnesses come forth. After all of that, the divine decision is made, a perfect, unbiased judgment. And from there, each person goes to their final, eternal home. You can really tell how significant and multifaceted this day is just by looking at how many different names it has in the Quran and Hadith. Each name kind of peels back another layer of what the day is all about. Just take a look at some of these names. Of course, there's Yawm al-Qiyamah, the day of standing or resurrection, but it's also called Yawm al-Fasl, the day of decision, and Yawm al-Hisab, the day of reckoning. And one of the most poignant, I think, is Yawm al-Talaq, which means the day of meeting, when every soul finally meets their creator, and, well, the consequences of their actions. So you see, these aren't just synonyms. It's better to think of each name like a different camera angle on the same massive event. Each one highlights a unique aspect, from the physical act of standing up again to the absolute finality of the judgment. Okay, so what does all of this mean for us, right now, in our daily lives? How does this deep theology translate into practice? This is where the texts suggest what our ultimate concern should really be. And this slide just lays out the contrast so clearly. It's basically showing two different mindsets, two ways to live your life. On one side, you have a life focused on the hereafter, which is said to lead to this inner richness and a sense of order in your life. On the other side, a life totally consumed by worldly things, which, well, it's said to lead to a kind of spiritual poverty and chaos, no matter how much you might actually have. And here's the hadith where that comparison comes from. The idea here is pretty profound. It's not saying you should abandon the world, not at all. It's saying that if your main focus is the hereafter, you'll feel a richness in your heart and the world will kind of come to you anyway. But if the world is your only concern, you'll always feel a sense of lack, of poverty between your eyes, and you'll only end up with what was destined for you in the first place.
And that brings us full circle, right back to a personal question a lot like the one we started with. After exploring this whole connection between our creation, our purpose, the resurrection, and the final judgment, we're really just left to reflect on our own lives and our own priorities. So the question for all of us is, where does our concern truly lie?